Welcome back, everybody, to the Rock and Blues Experience. Now, if you're a fan of Yes, then you're going to be in the company of two members of the prog rock icons on the next two editions of the show. Today, it is Jay Schellen who joins me as we look ahead to the upcoming Fragile tour and back on his varied and highly successful career. On the next show, we're going to be in the company of Billy Sherwood. Now, that will be coming midweek next week. Also coming up, the queen of rock and roll, Suzi Quatro, who has a brand new album coming out in March. It is called Freedom, and I can tell you it is a full-on rock album and the best she's done since the 70s heyday. Now, here's a clip from that upcoming feature as we look back on a day that she would never forget. Elektra see you and offered you a contract. Mickey Most rocks up with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell. What did you think? You're there, and two of the biggest names in music are there as artists. Beck and Cozy Powell.
I know. My brother found out that they were in town. They were there to record at Motown, and he got them to the gig that we were doing. And I remember I was Attitude City. So remember, I'm not singing all the songs. I'm only doing 2 or 3 songs a night. When I got up to do mine, I remember going, here's one I wrote. It was called Brain Confusion. And then I went into going to a party at the county jail. Done playing, and Mickey just went like this. Called me to the back of the hall. We sat down, and he said, how would you like to make an album? And me being me, I said, who are you? I knew who he was. And he said, I'm Mickey Mouse. I said, so what do you do? I knew what he did. And he said, I produce. I went, who have you done? And I'm playing all this dummy. Anyway, he then asked me to go to the Motown studios with him, which I did. Looked down at the pit from the studio, and I see James Jamison's bass against the wall. So me being me, I went down, picked it up, and started to play to showing off. And I was going, dum, ba-da-da-da-da-bow, Sissy Strut, dum, ba-da-da-da-bow. Jeff comes down, plugs in. Cozy comes down, sits at the drums. I am jamming in the pit with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell. It's a moment I will never, ever forget, ever.
Suzi Quatro, always fabulous entertainment. Now, she'll feature in an exclusive interview on an upcoming show. Now, the voice of Foreigner is Lou Gramm, and he's back for one final album and set of live appearances throughout the course of this year before he hangs up his mic after, 56 years. The album is called Released. It is out this March. We met up last week, and here's a clip from that feature with Lou talking about the night that he and the band jammed live on stage with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. But it does remind me of a quote talking about you, which appeared in, I think it was Circus magazine in the States. And they were describing your voice, and you just said, Lou Gramm, a voice that Robert Plant might envy.
Did you know I performed with him in Jimmy Page?
Yes, you did, and you did a whole lot of love, didn't you?
Yes, it was in Birmingham, England.
Yeah.
What a treat that was. We didn't even know they were there. We came off. We played our final song and came off to rest a minute before we went out for our encore. And there they were sitting in our dressing room. And I had never met them before, but I met them and they were buzzed about how great we sounded. And they're old friends of Mick's. So they were hugging each other and laughing and had a drink and all that stuff. And then Mick says, "You're not leaving, are you?" And they said, "Well, we hadn't intended to, giving him a look like, come on, invite us." And he says, "Come on, get your guitar. Let's go up on stage. What do you want to play?" So we played Lucille. And then we played Whole Lotta Love. And then we did Jukebox Hero.
Brilliant. That reminds me of Mutt Lang. When you went in to first lay your vocal track down on that, and he'd come off of working with AC/DC, and he wanted you to sing the opening line to that in the same manner that AC/DC would have.
Yeah, real high and screechy. And I said, Mutt, I says, there's some qualities of this song that roughly could remind you of AC/DC. I says, but if I start that song in the stratosphere, where am I going to go from there? I've got to sing that high jukebox area. You think I can get higher than that to sing it? And he goes, well, he says, I says, with all respect to AC/DC, we like to start our songs a little,
Lower down the scale.
lower down the scale and a little mysterious, and then move up the scale and hammer it down on the chorus. And he goes, oh yeah, I understand. It was like I hurt his feelings or something. But after I recorded the vocals, he came over to me and he goes, I see exactly what you mean. Great job.
The great Lou Gramm. And if you missed it, you can find the show on the website and YouTube channel now. Back to today and prog rock icons. Yes, who, as we move on toward their 60th anniversary, are as busy as ever with a multitude of projects on the go and a live calendar that has hardly got a free week in it, beginning with the Fragile Tour that arrives in the UK this April. Jay Schellen took over on drums after the sad passing of Alan White. He's enjoyed a long and prolific career since he first took to the road with Al Wilson supporting the Ohio Players back in 1979. We met up a few days ago to look back on his career and ahead to a bright future with Yes. You've never really been defined by the music, have you? Since day one, you've had this really eclectic range of tastes, from Herman's Hermits, the Monkees, the Beatles, of course. And your first obsession, this is after the Babysitter is playing Hard Day's Night, you get Rubber Soul, and eventually all roads lead to the very famous Birthday Cake.
My God, how did you know so much? I'll tell you, that's a lot of detail right there. Yeah, the Beatles' Birthday Cake. I was studying piano at the time. That was my first instrument. And, but I was banging on pots and pans and coffee cans with pencils and all of that. And that's the record I wanted, was Rubber Soul. Saved up enough allowance. And on my 5th birthday, I had that Beatles Birthday Cake. And I think that kind of cemented the deal for me. I guess.
I love it. I don't know what a Beatles Birthday Cake looks like, but...
Oh, I have that picture. I think I'm going to have to post that picture sometime. Because I have
think
it.
You should. It has to be done. There was a family influence as well. The rancherita music, the flamenco. You and your dad taking you to all of these jazz gigs because he's a pianist and a classical guitar player. So there's music permeating through your early years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that definitely formed the whole direction, I suppose, of where I was going to go. Because I was involved in a lot of sports. I was always very athletic in that way, but music took the forefront. Definitely.
So you've gone through that, and then came the exposure to people like John Bonham, the jazz fusion with the Mahavishnu orchestra as well. There's everything going into the melting pot. So you can imagine you at this young age, you're trying to work it out. You're trying to find a direction. But it was a beautiful time to be there with all of this music.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was into Return to Forever, Al Di Meola. I grew up listening to Jack DeJohnette, Philly Joe Jones, Joe Morello. and big band drummers even from before that. Dave Tuff, and Chet Atkins, flamenco, as you mentioned, Johnny Cash, it's a plethora of things. And, but my father was a scientist, so I kind of that kind of is in my DNA, I guess. And so fusion and progressive music was mathematically just really intriguing to me, and the sounds that were coming out, that those became, my melting pot, as you put it, of rock and roll, melody, Elton John, Three Dog Night, these kinds of bands, just superb players and just the gorgeous music and melodies. But then on the flip side, I was diving into, some of these, the techniques that were almost sounded like magic to me, in drumming.
And it's funny, isn't it? Everybody seems their first stop with music is classical piano. And your journey there took you to your lessons, these classical piano lessons, and you're wandering through the drum store, this guy, Nick Lucretti, who you'd end up hanging out with. And he would end up teaching you as well as Randy Castillo. I'm just trying to imagine what the journey was like to the lesson.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I was just big enough, to reach up and open the door practically, because I started at such a young age. And so my mom would drop me off at the door and just give a little nod to Nick, and I'd walk through the drum shop and I'd stop at every shiny object on the way, and especially the marine pearl finishes on the drums, Slingerland and the Ludwigs and, all of that. Yes. And so he would have to, grab me by the hand and get me back to my piano teacher's studio. And as soon as I get out of the studio, I just wanted to get right back to the drum shop. And soon enough after that, he gave me a pair of sticks and set up a little drum for me in the shop and started showing me things. And when my mom came to pick me up, he said, "Listen to this." And then I played her, a little ditty that we worked on. And he said, "I think he really has a talent for this, obviously, a love for it." So I got a drum, and then that's how it all, started. And I continued with lessons with Nick Lucchetti, another instructor there, Harlan Goldberg, and then another one, Kenny Batat, which taught me a lot of percussion, Latin percussion, and also flamenco playing, things like that.
That first full drum kit, it was secondhand, wasn't it? You got it from a garage sale, and you had to trade your piano. Now, this must have taken some doing, getting the agreement of your parents to trade in this piano where you were learning classical piano to become a hooligan.
I know.
On the drums.
Yeah, I was relegated to the garage, right? At first, but as it started developing, and we had a band, my buddy Lawrence Dominguez on guitar, and we would switch because I knew I wanted to play drums, but he also wanted to try it too. And I said, "Well, great, give me the guitar." So we would switch doing Zeppelin songs. But in the end, when he picked up that guitar, it was obvious he was a guitar player, and it was obvious I was the drummer. So we just let that go. But soon enough, I was able to graduate to a proper drum set that I got from Nick. And then I was allowed to set up in the den. And so as long as grades were kept up, and between when I got home and between when my dad got home from work, I could play. And a funny story, one of the things that I was doing back then is with Topographic Oceans. I always had an audience. It was my Chihuahua, little dog, and she would just set up right in front of me and sing with me while I played. But fortunately, I had headphones, so it wasn't too distracting. But I had a record player behind me, and I had one of the four sides of Topographic on the player. And before I would play it, I would say, hey, Alan White's not going to be able to make the show tonight. Does anyone out there know how to play Topographic Oceans, right? And I go, I do. And then I drop the needle on the record, and then I would play as if I was filling in for Alan when I was 13.
I love that. That's a great story. It's something that many have done. Yeah, usually it was with the hairbrush in front of the mirror pretending to be a front man. But you discovered Yes when you were, what, 13, which would have been 73, around the time of Topographic Oceans.
That's right.
For something like that to make such an impression when you were so young.
Yeah, and
because it isn't a trendy band. It wasn't, a 4-minute pop song. I mean, this is serious music going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well, in that melting pot between rock and fusion, there it was. And I was listening quite a bit to the Yes album, Foxtrot, Musical Box, PFM, and all these progressive rock groups. But Fragile, that locked it in for me. I mean, that was special. So I had a firm kind of moment there, and I felt like I could express a bit of my rock and roll feelings, but also with the precision of playing complex rhythms. And there's great melody there. So it just checked all the boxes for me, really. So I continued on that path. And when Yes Songs came out and Alan had joined the band, that was a mind blower for me for two reasons. I'll go back just a little bit because one of the moments that I knew the drumming was going to be my ticket, my thing, is I was just playing with my sister. We were very young, and Instant Karma came on the radio, and I'm listening, and it's got this nice shuffle, and I'm kind of half listening, but I'm going, oh, this is really good, and it's John Lennon, of course, so this is amazing. And then all of a sudden, those iconic fills that Alan put in that just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I had to know what that was because it was such a feeling change thing that affected me so much. So I had to know what that was. So I ended up getting a copy of that and learned what it was, but didn't quite understand it. Many, many years later with Alan, he explained it. Because that was a pop-up session. Basically, it was a phone call, and he just ran over there, and boom, The whole idea was to just create this track that would be recorded, mixed, and released, bam, within, by morning, kind of thing. And he said, I was in the middle of experimenting with the concept of playing fills that don't make any sense to the groove. So if I'm in a swing groove, my fill is going to be a hard fill with no swing, right? And possibly even in a note denomination that doesn't make any sense, or accenting it that way too. And then if I'm in a straight feel, I'm going to work on doing swing fills and triplet kind of things. So really breaking it up. And that was the mindset he was in when he tracked with John on that for the first time they played, and he threw in those fills. And he told me, he said, well, it's going to be a make or break moment. And this is where Alan was so courageous, and he continued to be courageous throughout his whole career. He went for it. He felt it. He trusted it, and he went for those fills. And he looked over at John, and John, he said, mouthed to him, keep doing that. Right? And that was Instant Karma. that, yeah, that coming full circle and knowing exactly what was in his mind when he did that and how much that affected me just kind of made just another connection, for me and my
You're
path.
only a teenager. You're 16 years of age, and you're getting out on tour with Al Wilson.
It was Al Wilson, and I was the drummer of his soul
You're
band.
16 years of age when you get out doing this again.
Yeah.
How did your parents react to this? Because you're still school age. Yeah, the Ohio Players are a big act.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, it was a short run of a tour, and the bass player had to be declared my legal guardian. And fortunately, the dates centered around New Mexico, where I was from, so it wasn't like I was going out for a long, long tour. So yeah, they were fine with it. It was amazing to me because the other thing about that particular gig is, one, I've listened to a lot of soul. I loved R&B, and in fusion, there's many drummers, Lenny White, Jerry Brown, and they've got the funk. Billy Cobham, I mean, come on, Alphonse Mouzon, Ronald Shannon Jackson. I was into all these guys, and man, it was funky. So I loved to funk it up and just sit that beat. And so at our first sound check at Tingley Coliseum, I didn't even know this, but the sit-in drummer for the Ohio Players was Floyd Sneed, one of my favorite guys from Three Dog Night, right? Mm-hmm. So he comes into the green room later and says, "Hey, young blood, man, it sounds awful nice out there." He says, let me give you one little clue. Kick your kick drum like you're kicking a brass band, right? Like you're kicking the brass.
Yeah.
And he said, then you've got the pocket, right? And what he was saying is I was playing a little bit more English style from Bonham, et cetera, and that kind of thing, where the snare is on the beat and the kick is a little lazy. So that changes your exact time. If one's a little lazy, see, it gets a little bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then it's got that feel. And he was cluing me in to really nail that kick and then drop the snare back. So it was just leaning in a different direction. So I got after that, and that was like when I started discovering how you can really manipulate so much of how people are feeling and how a song can groove and move just by simply, even body language will do it. Just how you're moving. So I pay attention to a lot of drummers in their body language as well, if I'm, trying to achieve some kind of sound.
It's interesting. Yeah. LA is the place to be, isn't it? And you're there in 81, and you're really very quickly part of the scene. You're on the tennis court with Tony Kaye having a game here and there. Pete Banks playing in his band on the Strip. Yeah. In the Central, which then became the Viper Room. It's an incredible night. Every night, who is ever on the Roxy or the Rainbow or the Whiskey always ends up down there. So you're jamming with John Mayall, Elton John's band, King Crimson are in, Bill Bruford drops by. And the name that I did love that came up on I have no idea where I saw it. There's a list of all of these great rock alumni, and then it says, and Dudley Moore.
And Dudley Moore. He was there all the time. It was one of his favorite hangouts because it was run by Tony and Keith, and they were English roadies. And so it was very much a pub, style hangout. And Dudley Moore would be in there quite a bit and holding court in one of the round booths. And I was called Young Squire. And, and so it was immensely uniquely just some of the best memories of my life. I mean, really, you got Tommy Evans, you got Joey Molland, you got Dee Murray over here, you got Dudley Moore. Then on other nights, John Mayall and Robin Ford. There was just so many people, and I was a house drummer, so
Yeah.
I rarely got a break. And one time I did take a break because I was kind of enamored with this one young lady, and so we had gone off into the back room, and so I was needed on stage, and the back door opens up, and Chris Squire said, "Young Squire, you needed up on stage here," and he throws me over his shoulder and parades me through the room over his shoulder and plops me down on the stage to continue the jam.
That's fantastic. You ended up going out on tour with ZZ Top on the Eliminator tour now. I mean, this is just the stuff of dreams. I mean, they had gone from being, primarily a band that is known in and around the US and around Texas and the US, and great band, to being international rock icons. Everybody knew them. What was it like?
Well, the group I was with was Danny Johnson and the Bandits.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny Johnson was a guitarist. He played with Rod Stewart, Stevie Nicks, Rick Derringer. He had a band called Axis with Vinny Appice. And great guitarist. Oh, that band was had so much groove and a lot of attitude. I love that band. I was so happy to be in that band when I got in that. We were basing out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and ZZ Top had heard about us, semi-infamous, and they asked us to pick up opening for them on about 7 shows or so, something like that. And so there you have it. We hopped on, and we were playing. That was definitely the first time that I had ever played to 30,000 people in the largest arenas in the southern area. So, yeah, there was a couple surreal moments going on there.
But it seems like every day there is a member, because your band Ritual and The Offenders, which was Randy Castillo, you opened in this fabulously named place called Mr. Lucky's in Denver. You opened for a little known band over there called The Police.
Yeah, I know. They were upstairs, we were downstairs. And also UK came through there.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite incredible. Did you have much interaction with Sting?
No.
Apart from meeting him on the stairs?
That's about it. You nailed it right there. It was just kind of, hey, mate, how'd you get it? They're sounding good, man. This is great. It's fun. I'm getting a drink. I'll see you later.
So you just imagine this lifestyle you have because you're hanging out with Ozzy a lot. You were a bit of a magazine magnet, weren't you, at the time, because you were going out with Lita Ford.
Yeah.
What was it like hanging out with Ozzy Osbourne? What was your relationship like with him?
Oh, it was just casual in a buy a drink kind of thing, But Randy and I were very close. So, God, I don't know how would you say. Sometimes I would say I'm almost like the Kevin Bacon of the music scene. I'm like one or two removed from so many things. So, but Ozzy was always just, he was one of just those kind of people when they're in the room, there's a presence there. And it was always fun-loving and very kind of gentle and like just a great guy. Just a great guy. Yeah.
Kevin DuBrow introduced Robert Sarzo and Tony Cavazzo. They recruit Kelly Hansen and you, and Hurricane is born.
Yeah.
And I mean, in between that, we've not even mentioned Badfinger and Tommy Evans, who taught you how to drink with a glass in each hand.
He did. And that serves me well to this day, knowing how to properly, take care of yourself at a pub.
But that era, 85 to 91, was full of some great bands that for one reason or another just failed to make the cut. And I was talking to Doug Aldrich recently about Lion, which was a band that he was in that were right on the cusp, and Hurricane was another. I mean, if you have the debut album, Take What You Want in 85, and then came Over the Edge in 88, you got Bob Ezrin in as a producer, you got a tour lined up with Extreme, who are this very, very hot band at the time. So what could possibly go wrong?
I know.
A question you asked yourself many times.
Yeah, I suppose we didn't knock on enough wood. Well, it's all comes from those days. Motley Crue, Poison, Stryper, all the bands were kind of coming up, and there was these indie labels, Green World, Enigma, and so their A&R people would grab a band early and then start working it. And then a parent company would be kind of sistered to this indie, and eventually would pick up the band. So it was almost like a developmental system, kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, we saw many mistakes happen at critical moments, particularly with debuting on Headbangers Ball.
Yes.
A video, it's a very big spot, and they got the video wrong, So things like that. So it was a bit of a surprise, because we were in the middle of our Slave to the Thrill tour with Doug on guitar, and it was extremely successful. We did a entire Z-Rock simulcast United States tour, and just riding high, and basically Enigma called it quits. So it got passed on to Capitol at that point. And we had just started or finished our first tour, and we were scheduled to go out, like you said, with Extreme. And Capitol just said, well, pretty much kind of, let's just bring all the soldiers home, and we'll decide what we're going to do, how we're going to launch the next, So that's kind of what happened, and it's just
it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
But fast
it really,
forward, you're on Billy Sherwood's debut solo album, The Big Piece, then Chris Squire's Conspiracy, and then you with Asia, working with Jeff on The Silent Nation, replacing Chris Slade. And those relationships built with Jeff, Chris, and Billy lead you to being Alan's choice stand-in on that Topographic Drama tour back in 2016. How much pressure did you feel at that moment? Because Alan had been with the band for then 42 years, 44 years. I mean, they'd only ever had two drummers.
Yeah.
So how did you cope with the expectation and pressure?
Well, all those factors did. It certainly helped. I mean, my experience with Jeff in Asia, we always said we'd be, playing together again. Working with Billy and Chris, of course, that kind of thing. But also, I knew Alan from pretty early on, back in, the 90125 days with Tony Kaye and that kind of thing. Yeah. So we were familiar, no doubt. And so when he asked me, really, in my mind, to tell you the truth, there wasn't much pressure at all, because he asked me to do this for him,
Sure.
So in my mind, I'm helping out my mentor, my guy, my friend, my hero, really. So I'm just going to do the best I can. And I've got this because it's in here. And I just approached it that way. And like I said, it just kind of felt like home, from all these years of working with all of the individual members over the years, that it felt like home. And of course, continuing on after 2016 with Alan, it was a beautiful partnership. And my whole thing about it was I'm in support of Alan and the music and the guys to just, carry on, make this sound as perfect as I possibly can. And not really put myself that much into it. I wasn't inserting my ego or anything like that, which isn't really my nature anyway. And we had so much fun doing that. And it shifted a bit, of course, when Alan passed. And my conversation with him, just saying, you've got this now, and I know you're going to kick ass. And, love you, brother, really. And at that point, it did change for me a little bit, but I still really, I'm honoring those who crafted this music before me. That is my thing. I love every bit about it, the notes, the passion, the energy, and that's really what I'm, doing. And it's inevitable. Some of me is going to spill out into all of this. So I don't, I just let it flow. Kind of like Alan let that fill flow in Instant Karma, right? Maybe it's all about karma.
Well, there was a quote of yours, actually, which summed up very succinctly what you just said there. And the quote was, play to serve the music. It is not about personal identity.
Yeah.
So that sums it up beautifully, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the way I feel. The music speaks to me first. What I hear comes to me and it speaks to me. And my body just reacts immediately and I just don't get in its way. And it may not be the final take, but there's something beautiful in that thing. And oftentimes when I'm working with Billy and we're doing sessions and so on and so forth, he'll just say, okay, well, here's the track, and he'll put it on loop and go get a cup of coffee. So I'm just getting familiar, right? Mm. And then in a few minutes, he'll come back and it hits the talk button and he'll say, all right. And I'd say, okay, ready to go. And he goes, well, no, I got it already. So there is something to that, but, yeah.
We, as you said, lost Alan back in 2022 and you took over, which was his wish. And you've appeared on the last two very well received albums, Quest and Mirror to the Sky, and the tours are continuing at a breakneck pace. And so we have Fragile arriving in Europe, having appeared already in the US.
Yeah.
And this, of course, was a standout album at the time. It was Rick's first album. It was Roger Dean's first album where he put the cover on. So where does this stand amongst your favorite albums as a fan and as a musician playing them?
It's certainly at the time number one in all my collections, right? It captivated really my imagination more than anything else. And then, of course, Alan joined, and then there was this whole thing. So there's many, many favorites, but still going back, Fragile and Close to the Edge, and it's a huge part of what I am influenced by as well. Yeah. And to be able to do Fragile, we've done, of course, songs individually from the record in our set. But when you put them in order, it changes the approach in a certain way because you start hearing the record in your head. And so in a lot of ways, as Billy put it, well, Jay, you're going to get your bill on. And I said, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun because there's some tracks on that record that you literally have to get your bill on because they would not sound correct, and fortunately a big fan of that as well and put in plenty of hours studying his work as well. So getting to do this is a particular joy for me, really. I mean, I'm thrilled and I'm so glad that we're bringing it to you guys over there. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great set. It's a great set.
The reviews at the time, I found a review from, it was either Village Voice or somewhere like that, and it was summed up like this. And it simply said, vibrant, soothing, tumultuous, placid, and instrumentally brilliant.
Wow.
What a great review.
Yeah. That's a lot of good words strung together.
And so tell me the last thing then, before we wrap it up. Who was the greatest drummer of all time?
Oh, wow. See, so many things. That is so tough. That is so tough. I don't even know if that's answerable because the amount of drummers that are flashing through my mind right now are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think one of the most underrated, Barrymore Barlow with Jethro Tull, to me, just used to blow up. I mean, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. I was very much focused on Neil Peart and, but you know what? God, dare I say, am I allowed to do a smash up?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Of two?
You can two or
three.
Okay.
Okay. I would smash Alan White and Phil Collins.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. And Billy Cobham.
Wow.
Well, four. Sorry. Tony Williams.
No, that's all right.
Tony Williams.
Brilliant.
That's about as best as I can do.
Jay Schellen, the epitome of relaxed cool. Now remember, if you're a fan of the band, on the next show coming out midweek next week, the always highly engaging Billy Sherwood will be guesting, and it's not to be missed. Billy was on great form, and we covered a wide range of subject matter. Now, don't forget, you can catch up with all of the latest content on the website, www.therockandbluesexperience.com, or on the YouTube channel and Facebook pages. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to having your company again next time out. For the moment then, from me, Tim Cable, bye-bye for now.